Welcome to Beyond the Margins, the podcast, the place where we engage, educate, empower, and elevate. I'm your lead learner and host, Dr. Sohn A. Each week, I sit down with some of the brightest minds and dynamic leaders in education to challenge traditional narratives, especially those shaping the experiences of students at the margins. Together, we explore new ways to reimagine schools, classrooms, and learning communities as spaces for growth and transformation. At Beyond the Margins, we center students too often overlooked, sharing the stories, strategies, and ideas that matter most. Voices long pushed aside are brought to the center. Welcome to Beyond the Margins. Did you know that students who feel truly valued are twice as likely to be engaged in school? However, only 1 in 3 students nationwide report feeling engaged, and this is according to a Gallup 2020 study. For Black and Brown students, the gap is even wider. Engagement isn't about just showing up. It's about being seen, being heard, and being connected to what matters most to you as a learner. In this episode, we explore how intentional relationships, relevance, and cultural consciousness transforms not just classrooms, but lives. Today, we go deep into the classroom, the culture, and the power of education with Hotep, a master educator, author of over 30 books, and a visionary in creative and educational entrepreneurship. Hotep doesn't just teach, he challenges, empowers, and elevates the next generation of educators. Please help me welcome Hotep to our show. Welcome to Beyond the Margins.
Not a problem, my brother. It's good to be here. Thank you. It's an honor and pleasure to be able to share with you today and your audience.
Absolutely. So look, before we jump in, give us a little bit of your origin story to education and to how you got to where you are today in this field.
The root is my parents in New York, Long Island, being born in Long Island in the 70s and my wonder years being in the 80s and being the beneficiary of the tail end and the beginning of certain movements. So I grew up in a time, it was the tail end of the civil rights movements. My parents were very active as Panthers, as well as just college graduates, new college graduates. So they were part of that movement by Black Americans that were in the colleges that were very active in the civil rights movement. And then my parents, although I was born in Queens, we moved to Long Island. So I had the Jeffersons experience where we moved on up from, lower income conditions to more middle class. And then, being born in 73, which is the year hip hop was born, I was brought up with that energy and that spirit as well. So those competencies are all the things that help form me to ultimately become a classroom teacher because I come from college educated and graduated parents. College was not a question for me. And because they were politically or civically active, when I did attend college, which was the great Morehouse College here in Atlanta, being civically and politically and historically conscious was just part of my upbringing. And so, and then, being born with the energy and the spirit of this new format of creation called hip hop, all those things, and coming up in a time where the greatest and the most popular hip hop artists were KRS-One and Chuck D and Rakim, people who spoke about things in an intelligent manner and, encouraged us to study our history and our culture. All those things were ultimately the nutrients that were that I was fed with to ultimately decide to become a major in early childhood development and ultimately become a classroom teacher in the late 90s.
Now, is that the trunk? The roots, that's your upbringing, your parents and their origins and their connection to the movements right before our generation, coming up in the hip hop generation. I was born in 77. So I like to think I'm not a part of hip hop. Like whatever I do is hip hop, right?
Absolutely.
And so those are your roots. So now you find your way to the great Morehouse down in Atlanta. And your education major?
Yeah, so I started off as a science major because at that time in the late 80s, there was a big push for, black people to get into engineering. They wanted to recruit more black people in engineering. So I was good in science. I loved science, especially biology. And so I started Morehouse with the intention of getting a degree in engineering. But because I also got active into some of the groups that were here on campus, I quickly saw that education was something that was necessary. Um, I also remembered Spike Lee's movie School Days,
Mm,
and had the similar experience of being in a college, but surrounded by poverty and crime,
mm,
and realizing that many of the HBCUs that I visited are in the same condition. You
yep,
go to Howard, and it's like the same thing. Like
yeah,
all the HBCUs are in the middle of the hood,
yep.
and so you're being um, inundated and acclimated in a space where people are calling you the talented 10th and you're the future and all this, but outside your window, literally, you see crime and poverty, and you realize that education has to be a part of the bridging of that gap. And so that's what ultimately led me into education. I chose early childhood education because Frederick Douglass said it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I had seen the brokenness occur and realized that it was important and necessary to get in the game at an earlier age as opposed to later in our children's development.
Perfect. And we're forever grateful for that. And you're right, the earlier the better. So we got the root squared away, we got the trunk.
We're talking, so now we're brought up to the late 90s. I'm a classroom teacher. But like I said, I'm part of, I'm a beneficiary of so many different movements in the Black American experience. One of those movements was the entrepreneurial movement, right? And so um, my entrepreneurial endeavors first started in the music industry because, like many young Black males at the time, that's a point of entry for a lot of us, a desire to become a rapper. Now, I first got into entrepreneurship in the um, as part of the music industry, and then quickly realized that um, music was just the beginning for me. If I could write a song, I could write a book, or I could write a treatment to a film, or I could, write a script for a video game, or, an animation. So I just quickly realized that not only not only did I have the entrepreneurial spirit, but I also just had that creative gene. And like Andre 3000 said right around that same time, when he said the South had something to say, that resonated with me because here I was in Atlanta. And although I didn't consider myself an AT alien at the time, now I am. But at the time, I wasn't an AT alien. Um, I felt that desire to not only have something to say, but want other people to hear what I had to say. So since then, I've been finding creative ways to share what I had to say, share my thoughts and ideas. So I did so through books. At this point, I've published over 30 books. I did so through documentaries. I've done so through developing curriculum. I've done so through animations, games, video games, and now toys. And then I also stepped out of the classroom to share the successful practices I was having in the classroom with educators all around the country and ultimately internationally as well. So at this point, my main work is consulting for schools and school districts around the country, training teachers, working collaboratively with school principals and administrators. Um, and then also I have more creative projects for young people and families based on um, those other uh, creative juices and energies that I like to express.
Yeah, brother, you got a lot of irons in the fire. I respect your hustle. It seems like every time I talk to you, it's another piece of IP or no another project you're working on, and no, that's the goal, and I truly respect that. Here's a question: as you do this work of supporting schools and school districts, what is a common pain point that you're seeing and identifying as you do this work across the country and even around the world?
A few things. One, I've come to appreciate the necessity for what I call now not just leadership, but bold and visionary leadership. Um, Coming from both the entrepreneurial perspective and the educational perspective, I can see things through both vantage points. And I find that leaders in education aren't the leaders I typically that I thought they would be. And the reason being is because a lot of leaders in education are really just employees.
Mm,
And so um, over the years, I've grown very frustrated with some of the lack of leadership that I've seen in education. And at some point, at one point, I was, really just frustrated with the individuals themselves. Like, come on, man, you're a principal, you're a superintendent, lead. You understand? The first lesson I learned is that there's a difference between the title of administrator or title of principal and the skill of leadership.
absolutely.
They're they're independent of each other. So you have people that have a title of principal, the title of superintendent, but they have poor leadership skills. And then vice versa, you have people that have great leadership
Hmm.
skills, just don't have the title. And so that's one. And then two is the fact that, as I said, I used to get frustrated with some of our administrators and leaders in education because of their lack of real leadership and willingness to do what's right and necessary on behalf of our children. But then I had to realize that they're not entrepreneurs. They're not really free, like I am as an entrepreneur. I'm free to make a decision and say,
Hmm.
you know what, that's not right. I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to work with this
Hmm.
person, or vice versa. They are employees, so ultimately, their ability to do what's right and necessary on behalf of our children is minimized. They're handcuffed in many ways, and so we have to work within that structure because schools to this point are still federally funded, and you have to make a way, and that's why we call make a way consulting. But those are some of the pain points that I experienced, and I continue to navigate through at this point in time. The last thing is, as a result of that, when you are a truth teller like I am, when you're someone that's not afraid to shake things up and make things uncomfortable for the sake of the change that's necessary that people say they want,
Hmm.
you have to realize that not everybody is about real change. Not everybody, they say these things, because they have to in order to get the funding. But I've found in many cases that people are scared. People are scared of change. They don't want change. They're not genuinely interested in change. They actually would prefer things to stay just the
Right.
same. And so, someone like myself and the brand that I've developed over these years um, is well received in spaces where people are serious about change. But um, when they're not, no, they won't give me a call because they know better.
Yeah. And that's a good place to be where, your message precedes you. And that's kind of where you want to be because you don't have time to waste with people that aren't interested in changing. And the work we need to do is always transformative. When I
Yes, sir.
when I asked you about the role of cultural consciousness in leadership, how does that impact every other aspect of the instructional teaching learning process?
So I will always maintain the truth that as human beings, we are more alike than different. However, there is nuance, and that nuance makes a difference. Um, and it can be significant it is significant in a variety of different ways. I'll give a quick example. So I work with a television network, a streaming service. They're much like Netflix. They're called Black Education Station. Black Education Station is a streaming service for the education of young black children ages 0 to 10. A lot of my creative animations and projects that I develop, I are streaming currently on Black Education Station, and I'm very proud of that. It's black owned, all the content created by black educators and experts. It's like a big deal. And I'm so proud that not only does it exist, but that I'm a part of that. Helping it be what it is. Recently, they I don't know if it was a video that they made or it might be on their website. It's an app, so you have to do, BESTV is the app that people download. In any case, they had said something about for the King holiday, Dream in Color, right? That was the title, Dream in Color. And they shared this image of Dr. King with his family at the dinner table, and it was in color, right? And I said, that was genius. So that was genius because, and hopefully you understand where I'm going with this, and the people that are listening can imagine what I'm expressing right now. For all our lives, when we think of Dr. King, the image in our mind is some black and white grainy image from a lifetime ago.
Mhm.
Like, Dr. King was alive so long ago in a time where, color didn't exist, right? And he's so far off away from us. But to see this image in color was a phenomenal experience for me because I can't remember ever seeing an image of Dr. King in color.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, it it made him look so much more real and human to see him not only in color, but there at the dinner table, sitting with his children, he was serving something to his
Mhm.
children. I say all that to say that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference between cultural competency and not.
Mhm.
No cultural competency, all you get is Dr. King in black and white making
Pixelated.
speeches,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. These pixelated black and white images with him making speeches. You don't see him as a full human being, right? In color, as a father,
Mhm.
as a man, and all those different things. When you don't have the cultural competency. With the cultural competency, you see the full spectrum,
Yeah.
you see?
Yeah.
And so that's the necessity for cultural competency, why it makes such a difference. Although I contend that as human beings, we are more alike than different.
Right.
And that cultural competency is part of that similarity, that we all need that kind of experience.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And that kind of brings me to my next thought is, what's the role of education and educators in shaping the identities of young people, especially when maybe the educators and the students don't share a common cultural background? How can that educator still support identity growth in the student?
Many of us as adults can trace back our current feelings about ourselves, our current perspectives about other people, to a childhood experience. That childhood experience sometimes comes from our parents and loved ones in the household, but oftentimes that experience comes from something that happened in school with other children and, yes, our teachers. Teachers, whether they know it or not, have a profound and important impact on children, for better and for worse if they're not intentional about it. And I saw this firsthand as a kindergarten teacher. It's a lot easier to see it when you're in elementary because you see humans develop a lot quicker right in front of you, you know? Um, so I saw firsthand uh, in the classroom as a kindergarten teacher how my physical presence, my example, the words that I use, my mannerisms made a difference on those young people because the young people are sponges.
Hmm.
People forget that even in middle school and high school, these young people aren't that far away from what they were in elementary. They're still receiving these images and messages and forming their own identity. So if we are careless about our influence, if we don't understand our influence, then educators do real damage, man.
Yeah.
Real damage. Or the opposite. When we are careful and intentional, we do great good. I mean, phenomenal good for the world. But I find again, in this work that I've been doing for the last now almost 20 years in classrooms around the country, most educators do not realize how influential they are.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about people being influencers, if you're a teacher, you're already an influencer, right? Like, you're already. by the nature of your position. And so, I've even had to tell some school principals, listen, I know you're struggling finding, qualified educators. You need, butts in seats and, in classrooms and all of that. But don't make the mistake of thinking that just because you have a warm body in that
Yeah.
classroom, that you're doing good for your children.
Yeah.
Some schools are better off
But
without some of these educators.
yeah.
You're better off with a bad
Yeah.
teacher will do more damage than good. And some of our administrators, again, need to, appreciate that and make a decision based off of that. Because they know, I mean, some of these administrators know,
Mm-hmm.
that they're literally bringing in people that are doing damage. And because they're employees or just fail to be real leaders, just allow these people in their buildings and allow their children to be damaged by these people. It's criminal, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I always say it's education neglect at best and child abuse at worst, because we're clear on what the outcomes are when they're not supported, when we don't have teachers who have the skills and the training or the wherewithal, the gut compassion to do the work. So that is very important. And that whole issue about living with vacancies over warm bodies, we don't have this conversation in all demographics of school. It's only when it gets down to marginalized kids that we take on that will do mentality.
You said it, well, they call it neglect, call it, my wife's an attorney. What do they call it? Malpractice. But we'll go with those for now.
Beyond the Margins, the podcast. We'll return in a moment.
Your Divine Journey, LLC, is here to walk with you through life's ups and downs. Whether you're seeking therapy, life coaching, support, or personal consultations, we provide a safe, empowering space to heal, grow, and step into your best self. Your journey is unique. Let's make it divine. Connect with us today and start moving forward with clarity, confidence, and peace. www.yourdivinejourneyllc.com.
At the Travel Bureau, we are dedicated to creating bespoke luxury experiences for the discerning traveler, specializing in detail-rich journeys designed with heart and intention. We turn your dream getaway into a beautiful, curated reality. Wherever you're going, the Travel Bureau will get you there in style, comfort, and joy.
If you're teaching urban, alternative, or non-traditional students and wondering why engagement feels harder than ever, the new book by Dr. Sohn A is for you. Unlocking Student Engagement isn't theory. It's real strategies for real classrooms, built on trust, relevance, and relationships. And educators across the country are already responding. Unlocking Student Engagement debuted at #1 in cultural pedagogies, philosophy and social aspects of education, educational professional development, and educational certification and development. Grab your copy today wherever you buy books, and let's change how engagement shows up in our classrooms. Welcome back to Beyond the Margins.
So what are some of those ethical mistakes you see well-meaning educators make culturally?
The main one that I'm very sensitive to is seeing people through the lens of pity. I find that the majority of educators are well-meaning, are well-intended. I do believe that. But again, they don't know how influential and powerful they are, because they themselves suffer from a poverty mindset, which needs to be fixed before they can even help their children. And then two, their intention is to help the least of us. And they come into the classrooms with marginalized, children, minority children, poor children, what have you, and they see them through the lens of pity. They speak to them through a lens of pity. And when they do so, again, that without their knowing, lowers their expectations for these people, for these children. And then they start to communicate things in such a way that the population that they're meaning to empower, they actually start to teach a condition known as learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have poor people
Mm.
who believe because they're poor, or you have marginalized people who believe that because they're marginalized, they are disabled and unable to achieve at high levels, and need, the handouts, need some kind of assistance because they obviously can't do it for themselves. They've been told that all their lives. And that, for you, sir, and ladies and gentlemen that are watching, is an absolute lie.
Mm.
And I speak about this often, and people don't, sometimes people get sensitive about it because, they think I'm talking about something from a political lens. But the simple fact of the matter is, human beings are powerful. Even poor people are powerful. Even marginalized people that deal with all the racism and homoism, whatever, are powerful. And it's our job as educators and influencers to first see their power and speak to their power and nurture that power so that they can rise above the conditions that they are currently in. But many educators do the opposite.
Mhm.
Oh, you poor thing, and oh, well, then let me do this and all that, and then it just feeds to, enabling foolishness and bad habits, and these people are not able to live full human lives because they've never learned that they are powerful enough to do so.
Yeah, it's like the perfect storm between learned helplessness, the poverty mindset, low expectations in a classroom. That's a recipe for nothing to happen good, no transformative education. We talk about this idea of poverty mindset and how it impacts engagement. Where the pity mindset may come from the professionals in the building, the poverty mindset is bought in with the students. How does the educational environment mitigate that poverty mindset that it cannot change socially? But how can they mitigate that? How can we as educators reduce this impact in the classroom?
Well, I want to clarify something that I actually said that many of our educators suffer from a poverty mindset as well.
Okay.
And so, and that's the reason why, in fact, you know what, this conversation is leading me to probably bring that up in my next few newsletters that we put out. Because I'm part of a group called the Poverty Mindset Research Institute. I'm one of their trainers. Mindset.com, I think, is the website. What it does is help educators, youth service providers, anybody understand that there's a difference between being poor and suffering from a poverty mindset.
Absolutely.
Two things are independent of each other. People oftentimes make the assumption that when we talk about poverty mindset, we're talking about low income people.
Hmm.
Sometimes we are, yes, sometimes we are. But sometimes that poverty mindset is actually brought in by so-called professionals that also suffer from this learned helplessness, you understand, or deficit thinking.
Hmm.
Another way of explaining poverty mindset is deficit thinking,
Yes.
meaning that a, a person that suffers from poverty mindset perceives themselves as operating and living and being in a deficit. And because they're in a deficit, whether it be financial or otherwise, they cannot do certain things.
Hmm.
A lot of educators, when they take the training and when I do the training, they think we're going to talk about those poor people, those Title I people that they're serving. And then they quickly learn through the conversation that,
No,
oh,
we're talking
shoot,
about you. Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
you. You are the teacher that operates from a deficit. You don't know how powerful you are in the classroom. That's the reason why you don't do certain things. That's the reason why you do certain things, because you don't see yourself as a powerful being. You operate from deficit.
Mm.
And then you're tasked with trying to teach people, help people get out of their own poverty mindset when you yourself suffer from it too. So that's the part of the perfect storm that I'm talking about. Um, and so what it requires is, one, people being more humble and self-reflective, that they are not perfect, they can be better, allowing themselves to um, uh, go through a training like this, be poured into, um, and see things for what they are. First, it requires humility, It requires willingness to learn. It requires proper training. And that training first starts with mindset. Skill set and mindset are two different things.
Very much.
And too often in our schools, they spend a lot of time teaching the skill set, but it's the mindset that directs how we use our skills. So if someone is not trained in overcoming their own poverty mindset or trained in what's known as an achievement mindset, then it doesn't matter what skills they have. It doesn't matter how, educated they are. They will always utilize their education in a way that leads to more deficit and poverty in their lives.
You wrote something in your book, How to Get Rid of a Pain in the Class. I want to read it and get you to comment on your passage. You said, remember, the true definition of education is to draw out from within. In order to do this, we must get students to open up and allow us in. One reason why students allow us in is because they believe that what we are teaching is meaningful and relevant. Why is relevance so crucial to engaging marginalized learners?
Yeah, I would say that's crucial for any person, whether marginalized or otherwise. Again, I will contend that the majority of what I will speak on is applicable to all human beings. That being said, in the classroom setting, for example, relationships are taught a lot. We speak a lot about the importance of relationships, which is very important. As a teacher, when you're in a classroom, relationships are necessary to get students to behave. Students will behave for you because of the relationship. My teacher's cool. I ain't gonna do nothing. I ain't gonna mess up nothing.
Yeah.
Right? That's just the basic of it. But it doesn't mean that student is going to pay
Or
attention.
be cognitively engaged, right?
The rule is relationships is why people behave. Relevance is why people stay engaged. If you want your students to pay attention, if you want your students to give you the opportunity to present something that they will, consider, then you have to establish yourself as someone in their lives that's going to present in a way that's relevant. And that's the formula. Relevance plus relationships equals results.
I've heard you speak about accountability being love.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? What does that mean in these educational spaces?
Well, we talk about accountability all the time in schools, but, that's probably my least book training, you see, because everybody wants to talk about accountability until they're the one being held accountable. Accountability is one of those things that people talk about, but don't really genuinely want in their buildings, in their schools, because that means people going to be looking at them too. However, it is necessary when it comes to transformation. It's necessary when it comes to leadership and success. In this regard, accountability being love, our intention in that training is to help people realize and remember that we don't hold people accountable because we dislike them. We hold people accountable because we love them. Like, it takes time, energy, and effort to observe, consider, reflect on something, and then say, you know what? I think we could have done that differently. I think we could have done better there, And to even communicate that to another person, that takes energy and effort. We do that typically when we care about something, when we care about that person, or we care about the outcomes that we're trying to get. So ultimately, accountability is a demonstration or expression of love because I care. Because if I didn't care, I would say nothing.
Yeah. Walk away.
I just, you know what? I saw it. It ain't right, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about you, or I don't care about the outcome. So I'm just going to let it slide. You see?
Yeah.
And so that's ultimately why that's the conversation that has to be had, and the point that has to be remembered when implementing measures of accountability in schools, businesses, or otherwise. That first and foremost, let's be clear. We do this because we care. All right. Now, once we establish that, let's talk about how we do it, and how we do it in a way that shows that we actually care. And that's not just an intention of being punitive, you see. And that's where the mistake comes in, is that people perceive accountability as just some type of punitive measure, which it does not have to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. And as you talk about, how do we do it? How do we operationalize a big ideal like this? Let's talk about the role of trauma-enforced practices and how do we actually operationalize? It's a buzzword. Everybody's talking about trauma-informed, but what does that mean on the ground?
So, as you mentioned, trauma informed is a very popular buzzword. As you know, everybody has gone through their own measure of trauma in their lives. To be human and to be an adult in particular, you're going through some trauma.
Mm.
I think part of the whole idea with the trauma informed and part of the challenge with it is that how are people quantifying what is a traumatic experience? You understand?
Yeah.
For some people, in their mind, the death of a parent is traumatic. Absolutely. Right. For some people, rape, sodomy, things of that are traumatic. They would not put in those categories divorce, right? But what that does is diminish a person's feelings
About divorce.
right?
Yeah.
About divorce. Like maybe divorce, my parents being divorced was traumatic for me. But you, because of your lens, don't quantify or qualify my measure of trauma the same way you measure someone else's. You see what I'm saying? So ultimately, for us, again, as I shared with you earlier, the practices that we train on and present and provide are applicable to all human beings because we understand this, right? That a person calling a person a name, right? This, whatever that name is, could be a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
So ultimately, all practices in the classroom should be trauma informed. Instead of, for me, instead of us getting into, well, what are the trauma informed practices? Well, let's just talk about the best practices that are applicable to all human beings that have experiences on this earth. Some will be traumatic, some will not. Some people will experience a death of a family member and it not be traumatic.
Yeah. Keep it moving.
You understand?
Yeah.
That's not, I don't even know the person that died. Like, I don't even know, or I didn't like them. So again, because we can't assume, because we can't quantify and qualify what makes a traumatic experience or not, why not just apply the best practices necessary for the best and optimal human development, and within those practices, weave in trauma-informed practices, social emotional learning, positive behavior interventions,
Restorative justice.
because all
Yeah.
restorative practices, all these things, right? And again, this is the silliness that I despise in education. I call it silliness because we like to get caught up in the flavor of the month. You understand?
Yep.
And so, oh, it's equity now. Oh, it's diversity now. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Stop it. There are simple, tried, tested, and proven best practices that have worked since the beginning of time. And they will always work with human beings because we don't change that much. I don't care what technology is out there.
True.
So, as schools, let's take those best practices, pull them together, and make them, and like you said, systematize them, and weave them into our daily rituals and routines and best practices. Then you can check off all those boxes, tier 1, tier 2, and whatever you want to call it. All that's checked off.
Yeah.
And it makes everyone's job easier when you do so.
What's one question you wish educators would ask themselves more often?
Am I the teacher that I needed when I was this age?
At this point, right?
Yeah, at this point in my life. Right. That would be one question I would like them to ask themselves.
What are 2 or 3, as you would say, non-negotiables when we're developing strong, culturally responsive school cultures and climates?
I'd have to think about that one.
Okay.
I'd have to think about it because I believe everything's negotiable. You understand? And the reason why I say that is because, we're called make a way for a reason, right? And that being said, sometimes when you are trying to make a way, that which you thought was a non-negotiable, you start to realize that you have to work through or work around, because that's the only way that way can be made. You understand? So when it comes to problem solving, it's like an absolute. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? When we grew up, you say, never use an absolute. And it's never 100%. It's never all or none. And so when people use the term non-negotiables, it makes me think of absolutes, which is something that I don't believe in. I believe in shades of gray.
Sometimes I hear people talk about the concept of a forever house. I'm like, I don't get that, because some things can happen in the next few weeks and months that changes everything. So I understand your position. For the educators listening out there that's just getting started, what's something you think they should try to avoid if possible?
Avoid, and I hate to put the gender connotation to this, but avoid the negative Nancy's. You understand? Avoid those complaining. Avoid anybody that you meet and encounter that likes to blame and complain. Stay away from those people, man. Those people have first of all, they have their own issues. I'm not saying that they're bad people, but when people are sitting around blaming and complaining, that can quickly become infectious and also negatively change the color of the lens that you see through when it comes to your school. You want to be around people that make a way. You want to have people around that have a better mindset, that are about solutions, and people like yourself and Dr. Brown, you know what I'm saying, that see that, yeah, there's obstacles, but there's an opportunity too. Those are the type of people, because those people will help you grow.
Perfect. Last question. Is there one lie that either marginalized students, Black students, students at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, is there a lie that they're either told, taught, or believe that you would like to undo?
Yeah, I'd like to the lie of white supremacy. I really hope that at some point and very soon that we stop giving power to this idea. Someone has done a great job of branding this term and spreading it profusely. So let me make something very clear. White people are not supreme. Are there some white people that believe they are? Absolutely. But when we go around saying this is white supremacy, is white, all we're doing is feeding the idea that it is a real thing. It's a truth. You understand? What's more appropriate when people are talking about the idea of some people feeling like they are supreme is what might better be called narcissism, is a more appropriate term. It is a lie to believe that term, I'm going to call it WS right now, is a real thing. These people are not, there's no people that are more supreme than any people. But when we as Black people, as marginalized people, as poor people buy into this terminology, it causes us psychologically to believe it. We give power to it by utilizing the terminology. And so it is a lie. It is more from that construct, really more comes from a narcissism and a fragility at best. And so call it what it is. Stop calling it what it ain't. And understand that just as much as some of those people feel like they're supreme, you got the same feelings in every culture. So my point is, there's in every group of people, you have this feeling that we are better than others. And it's not true for any group, and certainly not true for white people. So never allow that to get into your consciousness and psyche and allow that to diminish your beliefs about yourself. As a dark-skinned Black man in America that recognizes all the isms, experiences the isms, recognizes there's people out there that don't like me and will never like me, it doesn't change the fact that I'm powerful and I can navigate this world in such a way that I don't succeed in because they don't exist. I succeed in spite of them. You understand? And when you understand your true godly nature, right? And know that regardless of your skin color, your complexion, and where you fit in the social strata that you have, that you are made in the image of your creator, there is nothing out there that can stop you. Nothing. And so that's what I'd like for people to remember.
Now, you see Beyond the Margins why we had to have Hotep come through and bless us. Thank you, man. That is a good way to wrap up. We're definitely going to have to bring you back because there's so many other things that we could talk about and explore. Before I let you go, what's next for you? Anything on the horizon we should be looking out for?
Man, I'm having fun with the family-friendly anime brand. That's what, is fueling my passion right now. I still work in schools. I love doing that work. It's a difficult time working in schools now with the current administration. And so I've just, pivoted and repositioned into areas that I enjoy more, and it gives me a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, even during those difficult times. And so, having the anime brand, I just launched a toy line. So I have a toy and a new video game coming out. So, those are the things that continue to make me feel purposeful and accomplished. And, I'm hoping that I can help my fellow educators do the same. I'm bringing my masterclass back online as a monthly series for not only educators, but anybody that has a vision, has a dream, has something to say and wants to say it in their own authentic way. This is the last thing I want to say about that. I'm bringing back what I had called about 20 years ago, authentic entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Authentic entrepreneurship. So none of these faceless videos that people are being sold, none of the chasing algorithms and likes and views on all the sort. No, we ain't doing all that, man. None of that fake stuff, man. We're not worried about the intelligence that is artificial or the reality that is virtual. We're talking about the monetization of all the things that make you unique and special, right? Everything that makes you unique, special, all your authentic experiences and preferences can be turned into a brand that people will pay for. And so that's called authentic entrepreneurship. I'm bringing it back because I think now is the time that people are ready for that because they're tired of all that other stuff. So I'm doing that masterclass online on a monthly basis for the people that want that for themselves.
Thank you for taking us right up to the margins and to tell us how we can get over it. We appreciate you. You always have a place here. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here's the truth from Beyond the Margins. Every young person you meet carries untapped power, purpose, and potential. Too often, systems see limitations, but educators, real educators, true leaders, and mentors can reflect power back, nurture it, and spark transformation in their learners. Relationships open doors, relevance fuels engagement, and cultural consciousness unlocks identity. I wonder, what would happen if schools were built around identity, dignity, and purpose instead of compliance, control, and convenience?
Next time on Beyond the Margins.
What are some of the challenges that you've seen and opportunities at creating dynamic culture in schools?
The major challenge to me will be just trying to get people to see the vision, right? And sometimes as a visionary, it's the gift and the curse because sometimes you might be the only person that see it. If you continue to push, then, if you on fire, everybody else will get a little smoky, right? So you just got to keep moving, and that thing will change. So the biggest challenge is convincing people or influencing people. So really, leadership is nothing but influence.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Margins. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, share this episode, rate and review the show, and let's keep the dialogue going. If you would like to connect, email me at Sean@beyondthemarginsllc.com. That's SOHN@beyondthemarginsllc.com. It's been a pleasure being with you. Until next time, keep teaching, keep learning, keep leading, and keep pushing beyond the margins.